Nintendo's shocking decision with Next Level Games and Luigi's Mansion has paid off brilliantly, as they've done something that nobody would have expected that this franchise could do, especially against juggernauts in the industry. Now, one thing about Nintendo is that they're incredibly frugal when it comes to acquisitions. This company almost buys nothing. You honestly can count on one hand all of their acquisitions in the last 20 something years or so. We know that they purchased Retro Studios for an amount. We know that they purchased Monolith Soft, but they haven't even purchased Intelligent Systems, which is the flagship development studio behind one of their most successful franchises with Fire Emblem. So when Nintendo recently purchased Next Level Games, the company that makes Luigi's Mansion, most people felt that it was a pretty good purchase. Luigi's Mansion has been growing in popularity since the GameCube. There's not many titles in the franchise, but every single one has been a multi-million seller, with the original GameCube game selling over 3 million units, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon being the best seller up until the Switch with 6.44 million units, and up until recently we knew that Luigi's Mansion had sold 10 million plus units on the Switch. But we got an update recently, and the game has actually moved 12.82 million units on the Nintendo Switch, pretty much doubling up plus what it did before, or about doubling up what it did on the Nintendo 3DS. That is an astronomical jump in popularity. If you think about it, it's well over doubling each time it releases on various different platforms, from the GameCube to the Nintendo 3DS and now to the Nintendo Switch. That trajectory or arc is one of the fastest rises that we've seen for a franchise over one of the longest time periods when it comes down to it. Because remember, the GameCube, that was obviously released over 20 years ago at this point, and now Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon was released back in 2019. So a very large gap, and now we have these updated sales that were released. Now, the shocking thing about this is that it kind of just blew me away a little bit, is that this game, Luigi's Mansion 3, has outsold juggernauts that took 7 years plus to release and to develop, over $200 million in development, with games like The Last of Us Part 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake, obviously that game took a long time to make, and even Super Mario Maker 2 with its 7-8 million unit range. So the fact that Luigi's Mansion was able to outsell all of these games by millions of units just goes to show you that Nintendo not only made a right decision with Next Level Games, but it's the decision that's going to propel forward to Luigi's Mansion 4. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about this, because I think that Nintendo is in a very peculiar situation with Luigi's Mansion 4 and what they're going to be doing. We know that Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon Remastered is coming out sometime in 2024. Obviously, they want to kind of get some extra money out of their new acquisition when it comes to it. I do think that Next Level Games is on the port of that game. Remember, Nintendo now fully owns and operates them. So once Nintendo usually gets their hands on these companies, they do other types of work. They port, they do stuff. I know Retro Studios did do the port for Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Retro helps out with Mario Kart 7 before as well. They've done quite a number of things. We know that Monolith Soft, another acquisition from Nintendo, they help out with other titles like Splatoon and The Legend of Zelda and Animal Crossing. So Nintendo does have their companies that they purchase do that, or even remaster games. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, obviously Nintendo gave them the money to make sure that Monolith Soft remasters that game. So I do feel that Next Level Games is hard at work on that remaster. Remember, I don't think it's something to where you can just easily get it done. It's a Nintendo 3DS game that uses the dual screen and it has online multiplayer. So therefore, you're going to have to make a lot of adjustments and tweaks to get everything going smoothly on the Nintendo Switch. You're going from stereoscopic 3D, obviously removing that. And yes, you have the slider on the Nintendo 3DS and the Nintendo 2DS, but it's still something that you're looking into the original code, you're looking into the game, and you're seeing what can we do to adjust and optimize it for the platform that it's on, which is of course the Nintendo Switch. So I think that they're working on that. But I think that another thing that Nintendo obviously isn't going to talk about anytime soon, at least in the near future, is Luigi's Mansion 4. But people in the chat, when I talked about this, when I posted this on Twitter, it was pretty popular because I think a lot of people didn't know that Luigi's Mansion had done that well. But obviously it's a great game, it's well crafted, it's got a good review score, great sales. But I think this is going to parlay, this is going to really roll into what happens with Luigi's Mansion 4. I think that the budget is going to be much more increased here because I think each time that they've made Luigi's Mansion, it's gotten better and better. It's always one of the best looking games on whatever platform that it's on. I was blown away by how good the game looked on the Nintendo 3DS, even with that 240p or whatever screen that it has. It's not a really high resolution screen. It looked incredible on there, especially in 3D. Nintendo Switch, many people feel that Luigi's Mansion 3 is the best looking game on the platform, and I think I even had it in my top graphics for the Nintendo Switch or impressive games. So I think that with this next one, they're obviously going to go above what we've seen before with Luigi's Mansion, and that money that they made off of that, right? That 12 million plus, going on 13 million for Luigi's Mansion and counting, by the way. The game has been still racking up sales. That is going to be a very big telling point to what Luigi's Mansion 4 does. We could probably see, once again, multiplayer returning. We could be seeing new mini games being put in there. We can see maybe even a larger story. Luigi's Mansion was, for some reason, incredibly long. I was expecting a 10-hour game or so, and ended up being like 20 something hours for me. I think about 20 hours or so. There was some weird backtracking in there, which I didn't necessarily love, but at the same time, there was still a lot of content. So it was a lot longer than I expected, and it's a fully fleshed out game. I'd expect this to be a lot bigger going forward because of the amount that they made off of Luigi's Mansion. The budgets are just going up and up. You have to continue to try to push the bar. Each Luigi's Mansion game has got considerably better and better with each release. So I think it's going to be incredibly interesting to see how Nintendo navigates that with all of this extra cash and everything that they have from Luigi's Mansion. Now, I will say this. If you look at what Nintendo's done in the past, right, they let Rare go. Rare was a company that made a lot of hits, right? They made Banjo-Kazooie, they made Perfect Dark, they made GoldenEye, they made Conker. They had so much stuff, Killer Instinct, and they let them go when they could have easily bought up the rest of them. Next Level Games essentially only makes Luigi's Mansion, and Nintendo didn't allow them to go. So something tells me that Nintendo learned from their mistake with that one, because I do think ultimately the industry was done a disservice right now. And I know people love Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is fantastic, but at the expense of Killer Instinct and of Battletoads and of all of these games essentially disappearing. Perfect Dark, all these games have been dormant or dead, or they're still working on the next iterations. Banjo's been pretty much dead since the 360 era. So it was all at the expense of that. And Nintendo, I don't think they were willing to let a company that's this talented go and potentially have games that they could make. Because Nintendo owns them now, it might not just be Luigi's Mansion. They can say, hey, you guys can make a Kid Icarus. You guys can make a Star Fox. You guys can make a F-Zero. I think that Next Level Games is absolutely capable of doing all that. So I think that this might be Nintendo's power play or position to actually position this studio, Next Level Games, as the next Rare for them. I think people felt that Retro Studios could be that, and kinda maybe they are, but Retro Studios has never had the success when it comes to financially what Next Level has been able to do with their games. They've never had a title from Retro Studios that they developed sell 6 million units plus. Now, obviously, they've never worked solely on a game like Mario or something like that, right? They're usually Metroid, and they've worked on Mario Kart in the support role, helping out with tracks and stuff, but they've never had that type of big IP to work with, and any of their suggestions, like with Zelda and all that, have been vetoed down. But with Next Level, this is a company that Miyamoto was so impressed with the sales of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, he drew them a custom card and shipped it off to them in Canada. So I think that Nintendo has huge plans for Next Level, and this when it comes to the sales, which many people were shocked that it did that well. Remember, guys, bigger, more sales than The Last of Us Part 2 on the PlayStation 4 and the PS5 backwards compatibility. Bigger than Final Fantasy VII Remake, bigger than Mario Maker, bigger than a lot of your favorite games out there that are known to be big sellers. So the fact that Nintendo obviously purchased them, didn't let them go because they were going to go public or they were going to be bought by somebody else, didn't do that. In addition to getting this Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon port out of nowhere, it seems like things are ramping up, and this decision from Nintendo is going to bear some fruit very soon here, and even more fruit than we thought, because everyone just knew Next Level as the Luigi's Mansion studio. Even though they made other games for other companies and stuff, pretty much they were a second party. They had a big, nice contract with Nintendo when it comes to Luigi's Mansion that helped pay all of the bills. And now that they're under house, I think that there can be a lot more that Nintendo has from this studio in some of these classic franchises that they're cooking up for the next generation Switch. But once again, we have to wait and see. But overall, this is a good sign with the sales numbers, and it's a good sign in terms of what we're seeing so far. With them pointing over Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, maybe there's another port for the original Luigi's Mansion on Switch or something else. So we'll see what happens going forward, but I'm happy for Next Level Games. Happy that Luigi's Mansion is really getting the clout and the flowers it deserves. And we'll see what Luigi's Mansion 4 turns into, because that could be a revolution for that franchise in a way that nobody saw coming, now that all things are under and in-house with Nintendo as a first party. What are your thoughts when it comes to Luigi's Mansion 4, when it comes to Nintendo purchasing Next Level Games and the follow-ups that's going on there? And what do you think they could be doing next? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell to get my videos first, and check out some of my other videos on screen, like this really cool video that I did about the 25 best Nintendo Switch games. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.